This is part 1 of a 3-part podcast.
Hi, this is Mark. There are a lot of reasons to get angry these days, but I prefer to focus on the positive things that we each can do to make this world a better place. The book, Building a Better World in Your Backyard, Instead of Being Angry at Bad Guys, is a great resource for just that. Instead of throwing my arms up in frustration at governments or big corporations, there's a list of ideas that we each can tackle to affect change. Information about this book and other resources can be found at permies.com.
There we are. We're on.
It's happening. And I want to encourage the people that are watching through the YouTube-y thing to, type into the chatty chat and we'll add their stuff. Okay, today we're going to talk about feeding your whole family. And I kind of feel like at the top of the list, it should be easy and delightful. If it's not easy and delightful, I can't help but think people are going to go to, I don't know, McDonald's or something. And in fact, I know that I put this into a podcast ages ago, but I think a very critical point for growing enough food to feed your whole family is I once met a guy, and he was a farmer, and he had like a couple hundred acres. And I asked him about gardening, and he said, like 4 years ago, I grew like a 1-acre garden. It was beautiful. It had so much food in it. And my wife and kids refused to have anything to do with it. And more than 90% of it just ended up rotting right where it was. And nobody ate it. I tried to eat it, but I couldn't interest anybody in eating it. I couldn't interest anybody in cooking it other than me. So it was just me eating it. And so I kind of feel like that's an important piece in all of this as we're exploring how do you feed your whole family. And he said basically his position was he felt he could not compete with McDonald's and Domino's, and he had a list of fast foody things that's like that's where his family wants to eat, and they don't want to eat out of the garden. Now, I do believe that there is a beautiful solution to that, and that is to have a damn good cook. Also, I don't know, certain families, it's like, did you want to not eat? I prepared this food for you. Maybe it's not chef quality, but it did come from the garden, and you're saying you'd rather eat Domino's. It's like, how much money do you got? Because Domino's wants money for that stuff. So I've met some families where it's like the kids are like, I want the Domino's, and then the family's kind of like, yeah, good luck with that. You're on your own. As opposed to where one of the parents has access to the coin and is like, I'll buy you the Domino's because I don't want to eat out of the garden either. So I think that, rather than like rejecting this whole philosophy set, to embrace that this could be part of what you're working with, and that if you're going to make things be wonderful and delightful, you might end up having to be the cook. And I think we're going to touch on that. I know that for all the lists of things we're going to talk about today, that's on the list to touch on. But let's just do a thing that right now I can see Liv and Beau here. Let's do a thing. And then Samantha showed up. So let's kind of go around and let's start with Liv. So Liv, tell me about the food, like 2024. What was your food thing like that you grew, that you raised? Raised is probably the right word for you. I know you got a big garden, and I know you got animals.
Yeah, I do have a big garden, not as big as in the past. I used to grow the acre and a half, but that was when I went to the farmer's market. And now it's much smaller. It's about 100 by 120 or so, much smaller. But yeah, garden with all the staples, potatoes, dry beans, green beans, squashes, of course, all the tomatoes and all the cucumbers and cabbages and whatnot. And then last year, so 2024, in terms of meat, I harvested some beef, so that's in the freezer. I sold some, and some of it is freezer. I did not raise chickens last year for meat because I don't do it every year. It's just two of us, so how much chicken can you eat? But we still have some in the freezer, and I didn't raise any pigs last year. Same reason. It's just too much, but we still have some. Yeah, well, okay. I can't see you, but here we are. So then I also have had milk from my cows, and of course do all the things with milk that a person can do. And so that's, I think, about it in a nutshell.
How many acres are you using for your animal systems, Liv? Like what range of acres?
Probably 30-some acres, give or take. That's about how big our pastures are. Mm-hmm. Although we don't use all of it. Maybe 25. It's kind of hard to say because it's not a square. Yeah, about that.
And then you're growy bits on how much?
Oh, about the veggie part, about 100. Well, what is it? 12,000 square feet, give or take. Which is pretty small for me, but it's also, I'm doing most of the work, so.
12,000 or 1,200?
12,000 because it's 100 by 120, right? Yeah, 12,000.
Okay. 120, 12. Yeah, okay. All right. Yeah. I think that's about the size of when I was there, is something about that size.
It's not tiny at all. It's just not expansive by any means. Yeah.
Right, and it's not tiny. I mean, it's tiny when you say it in words, but it's not tiny when you have to work it.
Yeah.
You know, and it's I don't know, 90 degrees outside or whatever, or the pests are the gophers are eating it and other things. So
you have to defend it. That's the thing about your garden, is everybody's trying to eat it.
Yeah, but I have methods. I'm on top of that.
Okay.
All right. I was going to ask Beau to do the same, but he wandered off. Oh, there he is.
Got to hydrate. So our systems have ebbed and flowed, kind of like yours, Liv, but different. Like I think 3 years ago, we still shopped at the grocery store for things we weren't growing, either because they're not in our climate or because we just didn't want to. But we maximized on stuff that would last well throughout the winter and that we loved. So we did tons and tons. We grew all of our butternut, all of our potatoes, all of our sweet potatoes. We grew a bunch of sunchokes. And then a lot of your just like normal kind of annuals. We did a bunch of greens, bunch of kale. We scaled back our food production and amped up our herb production so that we could barter our herbs for most of our meat. And I feel like that caloric swing has actually been advantageous for us. Herbs love growing here, and our neighbors love growing meat. So we've done less of our own growing in terms of our food staples for the last 3 years. And this year we're moving. So it's kind of like we're actually scaling everything back, and we're deciding what we can grow that's going to be harvestable by June, because we're gone at about that point. But I don't know. It'd be really hard to say a percentage. I would say at our most, we may have grown anywhere between 40 and 60% of our family's needs for those couple years that we were really hitting it hard. And I think probably we do, if you include what we barter for now, it's probably the same.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, 100% of our meat this year has been bartered for.
That voice is my wife, Kristen. Yeah.
Okay.
Can y'all hear her?
You're getting edited.
She's gonna be real quick to tell me I'm lying, so this is good for you. But what's interesting out here is, we have 120 acres at our disposal, and we have intensively gardened 1.5 and then had another couple of acres of semi-managed feralish orchard that we do a little bit of polyculturing in. And then the rest of it, we do a lot of gentle nudges. Like it's that happy place between foraging, wildcrafting, and like negligent cultivation. So, we harvest we just found a flush of probably 20 pounds of oyster mushrooms that they didn't happen on their own. They happened because I'm logging and doing woodland work and bringing spores with me from our mushroom crops while I'm doing my work. So I didn't farm the mushrooms in an industrial or even a conventional sense. I wildcrafted them by accident. So we do a lot of that. That ebbs and flows. Like I'm about to tap our black walnut trees, and I'm not sure how quite to quantify that, but that syrup will mean we aren't buying maple from the Northlands for that portion of time when we're using our walnut syrup. So.
Black walnut? I didn't know you could tap the black walnut.
Yeah, you can tap walnut, sycamore, birch, all kinds of maple. The walnut syrup is a lot darker in flavor. You know how maple's so bright and sweet? Yeah. Walnut's like molassesy almost. It's got a lot more dimension to the flavor. You can't boil it down quite as much because it starts getting sticky like taffy. So you either gotta stop while it's still a little more runny, or you got to use it for its kind of stickiness as a not quite syrup thing. But
wow, I'd love to do that. I'll try to do that this year. That's great.
Yeah,
I had no idea. Yeah, I have lots of black walnut.
Oh, good. You should do it. It's about time.
Yeah, it's gonna be sweet. Yeah.
Anything you'd add to that, voice in the corner?
No, that's great.
Okay, good.
Okay. So Samantha, what's your quick summary?
Yeah. Oh, I probably have about 5 acres of paddocks that I have for my sheep that I move them through. Daddy's in the center of my property though, so I can just turn them loose. So I get to use the rest of my land. It's just not intensively grazed. And most of what we're eating is bushes. So the sheep are good browsers. And they love grass too, but they're just going through and eating all of the, I have a lot of redroot, ceanothus, a lot of oak, willow, snowberry, bunch of stuff that I wouldn't otherwise do anything with. And they just go out there and they love it. So I grow all my own meat. I wouldn't buy meat at all. I do barter for different kinds of meat, but, I have chickens, geese, ducks, and the sheep. So I don't need more meat, but there's sometimes for variety, somebody wants to eat pigs or cows, and I don't want to bother with growing cows. I'm amazed that Liv grows cows. It's a lot of work. Big animals are, big, hard to manage, but at least for me, and the sheep are easy. So they just pop out lambs all the time, and I love the wool. I do work a friend's garden more than I work my own garden. I still have to get up a lot of fence, but I have a friend who grows 10 times as much food as he needs. And so I help him and we get our veggies from there. So I do grow some veggies, but I grow more meat than veggies.
All right. I know you got a little garden there next to your house.
Oh yeah. I
have a podcast about that once.
I have probably a 50 by 75 garden. Yeah. But it's fun. I love it. And I built it for my dad so that he could just walk outside and get whatever he wants.
Now, that is something I hope we talk about a little bit today is this like, because part of it is like, how do you get your family to engage in your garden? And I kind of think raspberries and strawberries. Once you've got raspberries and strawberries, your family will recognize them, and then it's like they'll go harvest that, and it's like a gateway drug kind of a thing. It's something to really get them started. There's a few other things.
Do we sucker you guys into going to the garden with berry harvests? Do any of the berries ever make it back to our home?
Sometimes a few.
Sometimes a few. Yeah.
So, but I want to say that, okay, so the idea is how do you grow enough food for your family? And I kind of feel like the conversation we're about to have is going to be geared to people that either have incredibly tiny food systems or have never attempted a food system before. I'm thinking that's who we're talking to today. And I kind of feel like a great place to begin I think it's wise to pick 3 things to grow, because I think a lot of people start thinking about, I'm going to grow 47 different things. And then they decide that gardening is not for them. And I want to have better success. I want people to have better success. And I do think that start off by picking what are going to be your 3 primary things that are your 3 primary foods that you're going to try to grow a lot of, like raspberries. If let's say you're going to grow so many raspberries that it's going to be 20% of what you eat over the next year because you grew so many, then it's like, are you cool with that? Are you going to be... Now, I remember having a raspberry patch that we would tap into that was so massive that we would make a bunch of jam. We would make hundreds of jars of jam, but there's only so much jam you can eat. So I kind of feel like while raspberries are very easy to grow, very easy to care for, and they're perennial, and they're really good to help get the family engaged in the gardening, which means you kind of have to have a lot, even if a lot of it might end up going to waste. And of course, you have chickens, they'll clean that waste for you. But it's like, what would you be willing to make? Like, what food are you willing to make 10% or even 20% of what you eat all year long? And I think that would be one of your 3 contenders for your top 3. Okay, so let me start off by saying I'm going to suggest to people, pick 3 things that you're going to grow that are going to be your main food staples, and then you can grow other stuff. Just don't pour your soul into it like you do for those first 3. So those 3 you're going to build around those 3. You're going to have those 3 are going to be the ones you do big, and then you have a garden that's got all your little bits and bobs in it. This is what I'm saying is for beginners to get started, to be able to feed your whole family. Okay, let me lay this down in front of the 3 of you as an idea, as like a place to start a conversation. And I want to hear if you guys think that this is a dumb idea.
I think it sounds...
Specifically the focus on a few things.
Focus on 3, and then you can kind of have this side garden that has whatever else you want to add to the 3.
Okay, you go, Samantha.
I think that sounds great. It's really easy for me to go to the seed catalog and spend $200 because I want to grow everything. But then when I get out to the garden, there's not space for everything. And if I try to grow too many things, it's hard to keep track. And the thing is, if I really look at what I actually eat, I eat a lot of carrots. And so I need to focus on a ton of carrots to keep me from buying carrots. Onions and garlic, I don't know if you can ever have enough. So I think I would probably pick those 3. I think it's hard to say 3, but if you can really look at what you eat, and then, your 3 biggest staples that your family goes through. One of the easiest things for us to grow is blueberries because we have a huge patch and they don't take any work. Just got to defend them. But they're high antioxidant and high nutrient. And I think I can eat 20% of my diet in blueberries. That sounds great to me. But whatever's easy and you eat a lot of it. Because variety is super fun, but if we're talking about like how are we going to feed ourselves, it's pounds and pounds and pounds of something.
I think the thing is that if somebody's watching this video at this moment or listening to this podcast at this moment, and they've never grown a garden, or they have, but it's only been tiny, and now they want to upgrade to feed their whole family. The thing I'm saying is, let's get started with 3 main crops that you're going to grow a lot of, and then you can have a little garden on the side that's got whatever else suits your fancy. I'm proposing this as a general strategy, and it's because, like, when you go to the seed catalog and you get 40 different things, I think that for most people that becomes a little overwhelming, because each thing kind of has its own way to get going. Yeah. And so I think by focusing on 3 things, it's less overwhelming. And then if you have like a few more things in your little garden, that's, and you have like a 30% failure rate over there, doesn't really matter. You got your 3 main things that you've really learned about and you're doing right. And so they're producing a lot of food. So let's start with the idea of, I'm presenting this idea as a way for people to get started with gardening to feed their whole family. And so, Samantha, what do you think of this idea?
I think that's a great idea. I think if you could get really good at growing 3 things and know that you could depend on those crops, then every year you could add in a thing or 2 to practice and to play with, but you know that you're going to be able to eat. And you don't have, once you know a plant and you know how it grows, you know what it needs, you don't really have to think about it. It's kind of like cooking meals that you know the recipe and it doesn't take a lot of thought. You just, you know when the seeds go in the ground, you know what you need to do to protect it or what little animals might come and eat your food, but you know that plant really well. And I think that that's going to make gardening a lot easier for people if they learn a certain plant and they don't have to learn anymore. They just know that plant and they know what that plant needs. And to add in new things one at a time or not at all. If you can just sustain yourself on a mass of calories that's easy for you, then they won't burn up your time or burn up your energy. So gardening can be fun and easy.
I like the point that you made about if I grow carrots, then I don't have to buy carrots. And that's like a giant expense for me because I go through so many carrots. I'm a carrot fiend. And it's like, and I'm focusing on like, how do I spend less money at the grocery store first?
Yeah, or something high value like garlic. We eat so much garlic and garlic's expensive and it's so easy to grow.
I like that. Liv, what do you think of this idea of 3? Maybe you have a different number than 3 in mind.
Yeah, it sounds like a good idea for a beginner. I definitely, 3 doesn't seem to be overwhelming in terms of learning how to grow it. Totally. Like one of mine, if I was starting now, would be potatoes for sure. Do not have to go to the store and buy potatoes. Oh, and they're so good, homegrown. Maybe beans. I also like the ones that store well, like dry beans. You don't have to have a freezer. You don't have to can them. You just store them in a dry spot for years, and then you plant. Use them as seeds as next year. So I really like those. But anything that a person would want to, or some of the favorites, it sounds like a great idea to start small in terms of number, like 3 or 2 or 5. But yeah, I've done the seed catalog for years, hundreds and hundreds of dollars of seeds. But it's so cool. You see all the pictures. Oh, I want this and I want this. And yeah, it's just how it is.
Have you ever wondered whether a particular book was really good or just so-so, and if you could trust the reviews online? When it comes to books related to permaculture, Permies has a large list of reviews for over 100 books. Perhaps you're considering a book for yourself or a friend, or you're just curious about what's out there. Stop by permies.com/book and take a look at the book review grid and read some honest reviews, and hopefully you'll find the next book to add to your collection.
All right, Beau,
Yeah, I think I both agree and disagree. And mostly I agree. I think like if you've got someone who's never gardened before, just choose 3 things to focus on, learn those things. I've done this with people where I've coached them into starting and gardening, and that's definitely the place where we start. I think the thing to coach people through when they're growing these 3, and it so depends on personality. It's like there's a fixation where this desperation for them to grow and be hugely successful. So we spend a lot of time talking people down off of just the cliff of quitting when they have some failure in those 3. And I think that's the danger in like limiting yourself to 3 narrow pathways. I do think it's the proper entryway for most people today because we're focused on these systems and you need to narrow it down to focus on a few things that are learnable. But I do think there's something to be said for, focus 60-70% of your energy on 3, but then like look for what's really exciting. And if you're really stoked about 10 other things, then spend 30% of your energy on those 10. And you'll have a lot of failure, more so in those ones that you're just seeing how they do, but you'll learn a lot. And the shot in the arm that you get when one of those things surprisingly takes off, or some accident where you composted it and it did great, or like you tucked it in over here and it did weirdly great. Those are so encouraging. I hate to tell people to like ignore all the other stuff. Like I like to pepper in some excitement and some mystery. I mean, you're right in a systematic learning for beginners way, starting with 3 is good, but this is like the permaculture smackdown. And I think adding more diversity and adding more chance and interrupting people's linear boxes that they move into when they begin gardening, it serves a valuable utility. That's the push that I have against the start with 3, but I think it's both.
Okay. So I would say that let's get started with the idea of like what would be for those of us that are here, what would be our 3? We got a bunch of other topics to talk about. And so we're still just the very beginning of all of this. I would have to say my number 1 would be apple. And so we're planting hundreds of seeds every year, apple seeds in the ground directly. And then, but we already have a few apple trees that are now bearing fruit that started off as seed here. And it's like, I hope to get to the point that we have, 1,000 apple trees. And then we can like get to the point where half of them were like, don't like that one. And so we can either take it out or graft something onto it. Probably going to be lazy and just take it out. But with apples, I kind of feel like, great to get people out into the garden and engaged. I think most people are comfortable picking an apple and eating it. And then not to mention the fact that there's lots of things you can cook with apples. But I kind of feel like when it comes to preservation, there's like 12 different ways to preserve apples. And so I'm okay with making it be possibly as much as 30% of my diet. And I kind of feel like other people that are here, I think that they, would not object to apple being 30% of their diet. I think that they'd roll with that pretty good, especially with all the different ways we would do it. But I also think that one of the big ones, so when Mark Shepard talks about the big 3 crops of the United States, he talks about corn, wheat, and soy. But I kind of wonder if, we should leave out sugar cane. And I kind of feel like I'd much rather see people taking apple and getting it down to either a concentrated apple juice or maybe into a syrup or even a sugar, and reusing that wherever they would use cane sugar. But apple, the next 2 I have and it's like, and I'm not sure if I would go with these two, and I got a few others after this, but sunchokes, and I kind of feel like the thing I want to do with sunchokes is eat them more. I want to find many ways, because it's like, it's just crazy how many sunchokes we're growing without even trying. We are being overwhelmed with sunchokes. It is bizarre how simple it is, and we've just had terrific success with eating them so far. I just need to kind of work them into our food systems more. But I would say sunchokes are not a thing where people go out and identify with sunchokes and pluck it out of the ground and start gnawing on it. So I kind of feel like that's one that requires more. But the great thing about sunchokes is it requires zero preservation. You can go out there in the middle. You can go out there today and pull it out of the ground, and it's like it's ready to go. And the third one, and this has to do with just me right now and my own food comedies, and that is kale. And it's because on the one hand, you can grow kale most of the year. So it's out there standing by, ready to go into soups and salads and whatever else. But also, we've had some dried kale that was absolutely, and we've got giant solar food dehydrators. And so it's like, okay, so this is something that can easily become a big staple. And I know for myself right now, I think probably 10% to 20% of my current diet is kale. And this would be, I would go with the dinosaur kale. But outside of those three, I want to give a shout out to apricots, because I know that not only apricot jam, but also dried apricots. They're so crazy easy to dry, and of course they're always a delight to eat fresh, and they are a great gateway. Hazelnuts, we currently don't have any hazelnuts growing here at all. I keep exchanging emails with Mark Shepard about that. But and then finally onions. But I've grown a lot of onions in the past, but now we're growing these walking onions. They are not as easy to work with in the kitchen, but wow, we have thousands of them growing right now, and it's like I just kind of feel like I want to work the walking onions into our kitchen more and more and more, even though they're a bit of a hassle. So there you go. I did 3 and a bonus 3. Liv, let's start with you now. In a moment we'll get into animals, but at the moment I'm just sticking to growies. So you mentioned earlier potatoes was like number 1 on your list.
Yeah, we do eat potatoes, a very classic, pretty much omnivore diet. And the ones at the store just don't taste like anything. And no matter how much butter you put on them and other things, they don't have any taste to me. So I do my best to every year, if not there was a couple of years that I didn't have a garden, and I was really sad for me to have to go to the store and buy potatoes. So those are, really sad. For me, those are kind of a must. And onions too, because about, 95% of the meals we do require onions. So it's another thing, though, that, mine, like Paul said, ours don't grow as big as the store ones, but we just learn to, got used to it. They taste so much better, though. So I'd rather peel some more, in the 3 or 5 for one big one from the store. But I only have to do, make 3 steps into the pantry to get them. Don't have to go to the store for them. And maybe dry beans. I love dry beans. I know there's a lot of, some controversy out there about eating them, but I just love them. And I also think that the homegrown ones taste so much better. That'll be, and I do that actually, not that would be my first 3 choices. I actually do yeah, we also grow the garlic. Of course, we use that a lot in a lot of dishes. And, yeah.
I think that's really important what you said, Liv, about how easy it is to store a thing.
Yes.
You know, because might be easy to grow, but if you can't keep it stored or it takes a lot of work to store it and harvest it, then that's going to be a drawback. But beans and potatoes, it doesn't take any work, or garlic.
Right.
That stuff will last a long time. And, you know, in the potatoes in the spring, if I haven't eaten them, they can just go back in the garden. And you save food for yourself.
I usually put the small ones back in the ground. That I always kind of avoid during the winter because it's a lot of peeling, so those go back in the ground. Yeah.
It's nice, the ones that kind of grow themselves, like the beans or the corn. It's like you don't have to do anything. It just does all the work.
Yep, and I like the fact that the beans, for instance, you can, you know, keep those. Sometimes I have like very abundant years, so I have, you know, jars and jars, half-gallon jars of beans, and they're just there. Don't need any energy, it just needs a dry space, but that's all.
Yeah.
And, I sometimes, in general, I like to do this. Like I grow a lot in 1 year, so next year if there's a failure or whatever, laziness or whatever it is, then I don't have to grow it. So I basically have that crop for at least 2 years. Kind of the same thing with the candy, but we'll get into that later. So yeah, I just said what my 3 were on bowl.
How long do you think your beans keep?
They could be there. I didn't try, but I think they could be there for a decade. There's no reason for them to change. They're perfectly dry, perfectly viable to grow back if I put them in the garden. And
do you do anything? So you put them in a mason jar, and then you just put them in a mason jar and put the lid on, and you're done, or is there something more?
Well, the first thing is that you need to. I make sure that they're very dry. Living here in the wet climate, sometimes the rain starts early and beans are still in the garden. So I need to make sure that they're perfectly dry. Bring them in the hoop house or someplace where they can dry out if they have any moisture. So dryness is very important, because if they still have some moisture and you put them in some closed container, that's not good. And I've learned that the hard way. So yeah, perfectly dry, and any container would work that, I don't know, bugs don't get into, I guess.
Okay. So then, so you don't do you don't do anything. You just put them in the jar, put the lid on, and set them aside.
Yep.
Wow. Nice. And that's like 10 years.
I didn't keep them for 10 years, but I've had 5, 6. I'm sure, and they were perfectly fine. I don't see any reason why they wouldn't be good a few years later.
Excellent. Samantha, what would be your 3? Carrots.
I love sunchokes. I think they're really fun to go out there and just pick in the middle of winter, and I do eat them right out of the ground. I mean, I get the dirt off them, but I just crunch on them like carrots. I think that's a great thing, and it doesn't take any work. In terms of another staple to cover my family, I would probably say onions, because we do a lot of onions. And there's, and leaves. I mean, that's another thing that we would have to go to the store for if I didn't grow them, is leaves. Either kale or lettuce or some greens, because you always have to eat a salad. And if you don't have it right there in your garden, you've got to buy it. So I would probably put some kind of a green in there, maybe just a little bit of mixed greens. Kale is probably the easiest for us because we get a lot of frost. We get a lot of early frost and a lot of late frost, and the kale doesn't care. In the summertime, it might not be kale because it doesn't really like the hot. But I pretty much have to have greens all the time. So I think that some greens would have to be on my 3 list.
What kind of onions are you growing?
I do a red, it's a winter storage. Yeah, it's a winter storage onion. Yeah. I would love to have the walking onions like you have, because I think that's really neat that you don't have to do any work. The onions, to me, do take some work. I start them indoors. And then I have a little pot of like 1 million onions, and then I put them out. And so that's time. Whereas what you have going on at your place is the onions reproduce themselves, and you have more onions every year. And I think for the walking onions, I'd like to play with them more. I think that their ease of use may be dependent on really learning the plant. So at certain times of year, you're going to use that bulb, and at other times you're going to use the green. And then there's that little top bit, the little, the walking part that's going to go become the next onion. And when that becomes ready, then I would use that. I wouldn't even bother digging up the plant. So I think some of these plants, we need to learn more about them in order to make it easy to use them.
I agree with that. I also think that working with walking onions in the kitchen generally takes 3 times longer. Yeah. And that makes it so that people who cook with onions don't want them because it's a lot more work. Yeah. And I kind of feel like there might be ways to make it so that they're not as much work. And there's just things that need to be figured out. Things that need to be, and another thing is like, while I can harvest onions, I've done it where I'm harvesting the walking onions from like midsummer through late fall. I'm kind of curious if I go out and start digging around right now, and could I find some onions, and then what would they be like? So I kind of feel like there's a lot to be learned.
Yeah.
So then, so you've got greens, which is probably kale. If you're going to pick one, it sounds like you're going to pick kale.
Yeah.
You've got your onion process, and it is a bit of work. There's a fair bit going on there to do the onions.
It is, but you feel really rich at the end of the season when you get to have bags and bags of, stored onions, and all winter you can just open the cabinet and eat all the onions that you want. It just, there's a richness to that. And so, yeah, it's work in the spring, and it's tedious, and you're tired of it, and trying to find a place to put more onions. The other thing about the ones that I grow is they're so dense and heavy. Like, they are a completely different plant. Like Liv was saying, the potatoes she grows are different than what you get at the store. If somebody's just starting gardening, they might not understand that the plants we're talking about are different than what you might buy. So the kale you're going to pick with your own hand and eat is sweet and magnificent. The kale that's been sitting at the grocery store might not taste so great. So maybe you don't like kale, but you might love kale that comes out of your garden. You have a mineral-rich soil. And you might love potatoes if you grew them yourself, and that skin is really rich and hearty, and the whole plant is full of energy. So all the things, like the carrots that I grow, they taste like somebody candied them in sugar. And they don't taste like the carrots that you get out of a bag. So I think that that's a really important thing, is the plants we grow, they also last longer. The kale, you can pick kale out of the garden and have it stay in the fridge and be nice for weeks and not go bad. And store-bought kale doesn't do that. So I think that it's a different thing that you're talking about eating, and the food tastes significantly better, I think, if it comes out of your own garden or your friend's garden.
So, I mean, and that kind of comes back to some of the stuff that everybody has mentioned so far, is like, if you grow a plethora of your 3 things, you can oftentimes find people that have standards similar to yours that you can trade with.
Yeah.
And so that's also a lovely path. All right. Beau, what are your 3 things?
Yeah, this is a funny one. This is a really hard one. It'd be really easy if you said, what are your 3 annuals? What are your 3 perennial, like blah, 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 When you went out of the gate talking about apples, Paul, I think it's really clutch to be like, okay, so here we have Paul not growing for this year. Here we have Paul growing for effortless harvests between 5 and 50 years. So, like, it's hard to differentiate between categories. And you're talking about for a beginner. I do feel like most beginners are thinking about this season.
It's a fair point. All a fair point.
So I'm going to cheat by answering for my wife, who's very annual focused, this season focused, because she's the culinary master. And then for me, who's like more lazy and prone to what excites me more. So she's going to grow a ton of butternut squash because they just thrive and they last all winter. We do. We actually don't have to grow garlic because it just grows here. Like it self-sows. It was here when we got here. If we do transplant it and put it in irrigation, the bulbs get bigger. But if we want small bulbs, then we just harvest it by the creek. So like maybe that counts. I'm going to lump that in with green onions. So like we'll just pop green onions in from the store and harvest green onions off them all season. And then we may yank a bulb at the end of the year. We've still got green onions that have been growing through the snow. So I really like that one. Her other ones were corn and sweet potatoes. So that's already more than 3 for her. I love I'm going to go with apple. I think just fruit trees and fruit seeds in general. I love, I'm in the woods anyway, so I love poking a few seeds in at the southern edge of the woods and letting, whether it's, pawpaw or pear or peach, there are probably 10 times more apple seeds that are doing their thing than any other variety. So I'm going to go with apple, and I'm going to go with mushrooms. I'm not going to choose a variety because they all work so well and they're so effortless and they provide such a ecosystem service for us too. The more energy you invest in mushrooms, the more they'll sustain you, the more they can even take the place of a lot of what meat does and what medicine does. But even if you just decide to neglect them utterly, they will still provide their services and still give you a yield. So I'm going to go with apples and mushrooms, and it's a tough one. Yeah, I don't know. Let's go with passion.
Okay. Earlier you said something about corn.
Mm-hmm.
Do you mean sweet corn, field corn, popcorn?
More like heritage varieties. We've been growing a variety called Bloody Butcher lately that, it's very sturdy and it holds up to our Kansas winds really well.
Which I think is a field corn.
Yeah. And it performs really well as a trellis for peas. So, I'm going to say field corn. Yeah.
Okay. All right. And one of the things I wanted to talk about is that I remember I grew a little bit of Painted Mountain field corn years ago, and my results weren't too great, but Painted Mountain is popular because it has such a short growing season. And so it's like, oh no, I'm planting so late, and it's like, well, you can still get Painted Mountain. And I cannot remember, but I've been discouraging people from planting it. And the reason is that I suspect that if you were to plant the Painted Mountain, which is a very multicolored, very colorful corn, I would be concerned that when you ground it up and you made like cornbread or something, that people would be less likely to eat it because of the color.
So you're talking about compliance, which is like the medical term for the guy whose family won't eat his stuff. And that's where we have to go back to it depends. If I'm encouraging someone what to grow, I'm going to ask them what they'll eat. And if their family won't eat red cornbread, then maybe that's a bad selection.
Yeah, no. And when you do that, the Bloody Butcher corn, do you end up with red cornbread?
We haven't ground it and made cornbread.
It's just the hull, the inside. It's like
so it's just a normal cornbread.
Yeah, it's a normal.
All the colored bits go away.
Well, not.
Liv's got something here.
Okay, so Liv's got. What do you got there, Liv?
I have my own variety of field corn, and this jar is all red, but when you grind it, it's not red. So
it's kind of normal.
Yeah, so very normal.
There you go.
Oh. Okay, so it's so you end up with a yellow cornbread.
Yeah, and this is when my mom was here, she separated this red. I don't know why. It's kind of pretty from the rest. It was something for her to do, but yeah.
How fun.
Well, we've grown some corn here, and I've always insisted that we just get the white or the yellow, and it's because I'm concerned about people. Now, of course, along these lines, we've grown a lot of rhubarb. And we have many varieties of rhubarb that we're growing here. And when people harvest the rhubarb and they make a jam, I warn them every year, and they always ignore my warning the first batch, and then they get my point. And so what I say is that keep your green rhubarb separate from your red rhubarb. And then when you make your rhubarb jam or anything that you're making with rhubarb, generally they make jam because they love it so much, then keep it separate. You'll have your red rhubarb jam and your green rhubarb jam. And the first time they do it, once they get to it and I'm not in the room, they're like, oh, Paul's a worry word. That's so dumb. And I don't know if you guys seen what they make. Have you seen what happens?
Red and green make brown, don't they?
They make brown, and then it turns out that nobody wants to eat the brown rhubarb jam, but they love the red rhubarb jam and they love the green rhubarb jam. And the brown stuff, it's exactly the same and it tastes the same, but they just don't want to eat it. And,
Kristen's advocating for tricking them with beet juice.
Well, and what we've got some hibiscus powder here.
Yeah, there you go.
And so in the red rhubarb jam, which might end up being like not as red as you might hope, they're now putting a little hibiscus flower in there, and it makes it very red, super red, and they love that. Now it's their favorite.
Cornbread.
What's that?
As red as you don't want your cornbread.
And I've been discouraging people from getting Painted Mountain for years just because I was afraid it would turn brown.
Now you know.
Like it would be
Don't
a
be
thing
afraid,
nobody
Paul.
wants to eat. I'm glad to hear that was entirely my mistake. But when it comes to rhubarb, yeah, don't mix red and green because then people will just be all put off and they don't want to eat it now, even though it tastes great. And so I think that's an important thing, but especially for this thing that we're doing right now to talk about.
You were talking about the corns, and one thing that I tried for years is, you don't want to mix your corn, like the pollination, but then you want to grow lots of different kinds of corn. And so what my neighbor does is he just grows the sweet corn, and we just grow a lot of it in different flushes, and it's just like beautiful yellow sweet corn. And then at the end of the season, we leave it on the stalk. Just don't pick it and leave it there. And it gets all dried out. And I do live in a dry climate. I don't think it would work for Liv or somebody who lives in the rainforest, but it dries on the cob on the plant, and then we grind that. And that's our cornmeal. And it's a really sweet, lovely cornmeal, and we don't have to grow two kinds of corn. So that seems like
it looks different. It dries. It looks more like raisin corn.
Shriveled, yeah.
Oh, it's all shriveled up, yeah, because it's a sweet corn that was full of water, not flour corn.
Whereas field corn
cornmeal,
kind of comes out looking like a whole kernel of corn, and So, but if you do sweet corn as field corn, then you can get. That is a fantastic way to go about it.
It might look funny, but I think it tastes really good. So, and it's easy because you don't have to bother with more than one variety.
This podcast is continued in part 2.
Hey, this is T. Blankenship. Are you a fan of pie? Where there's pie at Permies.com. This pie grants the user secret access. You also get free things like videos of Wheaton Labs, the ability to add 2 thumbs up to posts, and more. To get pie, go to Permies.com/pie to get the inside scoop of what pie can do for you. Again, that is Permies.com/pie.